Imagine traveling 2,000 miles across the scorching west, chasing a promise written in ink, only to step off the train and hear the man you came to marry say, "This is a mistake." But then a small voice cuts through the crowd. A 7-year-old boy, shaking with tears, admits he wrote every letter because his home is drowning in grief, and he's desperate to bring laughter back to his father. Now Clara has a choice: walk away in humiliation, or step into a house filled with silence, secrets, and a town ready to tear her apart. And just when she starts to belong, powerful people move in to destroy everything, forcing a marriage that was never meant to be real, until feelings neither of them planned begin to grow. Stay with me, because what happens next isn't just romance. It's survival, courage, and the kind of love that's forged under pressure. Lesson: sometimes the hardest beginnings lead to the strongest families, and healing often starts with one brave act of hope. If this story touched you, hit like, comment what you would have done in Clara's place, share it with someone who loves heartfelt dramas, and subscribe for more stories that stay with you long after they end. The Wyoming sun in 1882 was a cruel thing. It beat down on Clara as she stood alone on the dusty train platform, her hopes turning to ash in the heat. The man she'd come to marry, Ethan Cole, stood before her, tall and weathered, with eyes as cold as a winter creek. He looked right through her and said, "This is a mistake." He told her he never wrote any letters, never asked for a wife. The whispers of the town folk were like biting flies, each one a sting of shame. Clara felt the world shrinking, every dollar she owned spent on a ticket to this dead end. Ethan offered to pay for her trip back, a cold apology for a promise he never made. But Clara had left nothing behind but loneliness, and she wouldn't be turned away so easily. She looked that grieving man in the eye and called him a coward for letting his pain make him cruel. Just as his anger flared, a small boy, no older than 7, darted out from the crowd. It was his son, Noah. With tears in his eyes, he stood between them and declared, "You can't send her away. I wrote the letters, Papa." The crowd gasped. The boy confessed he'd used his father's name, desperate for someone to chase the sadness from their quiet home. He just wanted to hear laughter again and see his father smile. The little boy's heartbreaking words hung in the air. He sobbed that he just wanted them to be a family again. In that moment, Clara wasn't a rejected bride. She was the only person who saw the boy's desperate love for his father. She knelt and told him he was brave, not wrong. Then she stood, faced Ethan, and said his son's courage deserved more than a public spectacle. With the whole town watching, Ethan gave a short nod. He led the way to his worn-out wagon, and with Noah holding her hand tight, Clara walked toward a future she never could have imagined. Ethan's jaw was set hard. "Papa, stop!" A child's voice sliced through the tension. A small boy, no older than 7, planted himself right between Clara and his father. He was all bone and grit in patched trousers. "Noah, get back to the wagon now," Ethan warned. The boy's chin shot up. "No, you ain't sending her away. This is on me." His voice trembled. "I sent the letters. I wrote every word because I knew you were too stubborn to ask for help." The crowd murmured. Clara felt the ground shift. Those letters, filled with such powerful hope and hurt, were from a little boy. "Noah, what did you do?" Ethan's face was pale. "I did what you were too afraid to do." Tears streamed down the boy's dusty face. "I found someone to help us, someone to make the house feel less empty, and maybe make you stop looking so sad all the time." His voice broke. "Mama's been gone a whole year, and you won't even talk about her. We never laugh anymore. I just thought if someone nice came..." He broke down, his little body shaking with sobs. Without a second thought, Clara knelt in the dust. She gently took the boy's shoulders. "Noah, look at me." His tear-filled eyes met hers. "What you did was brave," she said softly, for only him to hear. "You saw your father was hurting, and you tried to help. That is love." I just wanted a family again, Noah whispered. Clara's heart ached. She looked up at Ethan, whose face was a storm of anger and grief. She stood, keeping a hand on Noah's shoulder. Mr. Cole, I know this ain't what you expected, but your son brought me here. The least we can do is not embarrass him in front of the whole town. Ethan's jaw worked for a long moment. What are you suggesting? A private conversation, away from all these curious ears. Finally, he gave a stiff nod. Fine. The wagon's this way. Noah grabbed Clara's hand and pulled her along. Behind them, the town gossip started up like a wildfire. Clara just kept her back straight and her eyes fixed ahead. She'd faced worse than talk. The wagon was old and built for work, not comfort. Ethan hopped up to the driver's seat without a word. Noah scrambled up next to him, then offered a small hand to Clara. She took it, grateful, and squeezed onto the bench. They rode through Drywall Crossing in a thick silence. Folks stopped and stared as they passed, whispering behind their hands. Once town was behind them, the land opened up wide and empty under a blazing sky. The only sounds were the creak of the wheels and the horses' steady pace. Miss Whitman, Noah's voice was tiny. Are you mad at me? Clara looked down at his worried face. No, sweetheart, I'm not mad. Papa is. Your papa is surprised. There's a difference. He's always mad now, Noah whispered. Ever since Mama passed, Clara glanced at Ethan's stony profile. Grief can look like anger sometimes, she said gently to the boy. But underneath, I bet your papa's just very sad. Are you sad too? Noah asked. Is that why you came? The honest question nearly broke her composure. Yes, she admitted. I suppose I was lonely. Your letters gave me hope that I could be needed somewhere. We need you, Noah said with certainty. You can teach me my letters, and the house is a real mess since our housekeeper left. She said the sadness in it was too thick to breathe. Noah, Ethan's sharp voice cut in. That's enough. The boy went quiet, shrinking into himself. When they reached the ranch, it looked sturdy but heavy with silence. Ethan pulled the wagon to a stop and stalked toward the barn without a word. Papa? Noah called out. Work! The single word came back. The boy's face fell. Clara put a hand on his back. He just needs a minute to think. He's gonna send you away, Noah said, his voice thick with unshed tears. Maybe, Clara said, climbing down. But I'm here now. Why don't you show me around this house of yours? Hope lit up the boy's eyes. Really? You'll stay? I'll stay for a proper talk at least, Clara promised, grabbing her bag. The boy jumped down from the wagon, his sadness replaced by a sudden burst of energy. This way, Miss Whitman. Watch that loose step. The house was just as she'd pictured it, solid but starved for care. Dust coated everything. The kitchen was a place for survival, not joy. But beneath the mess, she saw the bones of a real home. A good fireplace, strong walls, and a big kitchen table that had seen better days. It ain't much, Noah said, watching her face. Mama used to keep it nice. She'd put flowers in jars and make it smell like cinnamon. But Papa said there's no point to things like that anymore. Clara set her bag down. Noah, how did your mama pass? His voice went flat. A fever. It happened real fast. Clara gently told him she understood his hurt. Noah tried to look tough, shrugging his shoulders. Papa says a year is long enough to be sad. She shook her head. Grief does not follow a calendar, little one. Your father ought to know that. Just then, Ethan appeared in the doorway, looking tired from the trail. He cut his eyes toward his son. Noah, he said, time to feed the chickens before the sun goes down. But Papa. Now, son. The boy scurried out the back door, leaving a heavy silence behind him. Clara stood her ground, waiting. Ethan finally broke the quiet. I need to apologize. His words caught her off guard. What I did at the station was wrong, plain and simple. You are a lady, and I treated you with no respect. Clara nodded. Shock is no excuse for being cruel. He twisted his hat in his hands. My boy went behind my back and roped a stranger into our lives. I am angry, but none of that is your fault. So what happens now? She asked. He sighed. Well, that is the problem. If I send you back, the gossips in town will ruin your good name. And if you stay, well, they will just ruin it in a different way. They will talk something awful about an unmarried woman living in a widower's house. So I am stuck, she said flatly. Not stuck, he corrected. You have a choice. You can take enough money to start over somewhere new, or you can stay for 1 month. He held up a hand. You would teach Noah and help around here. I would pay you a fair wage. At the end of the month, if it is not working out, I will still pay for your ticket home. Why would you do that? She asked, truly puzzled. He looked down for a long moment. Because my son called me a coward. And the boy was right. You traveled 2,000 miles because of letters from my 7-year-old son. That takes grit. The least I can do is give you a fair shot. She saw a flicker of honor in the hardened man. All right, she said, 1 month. I want a proper wage each week and my Sunday afternoons free. Done, he agreed. And one more thing. You will not be hard on that boy because of this. If you are, I will call you on it. A small smile touched his lips. You have got some sand. I will give you that. She held out her hand. Do we have a deal, Mr. Cole? He took it. We have a deal, Miss Whitman. The next morning, the creak of floorboards woke Clara before the sun. She felt lost in the quiet ranch house, a world away from the city. She was second-guessing her decision when a soft knock came at her door. Miss Whitman? It was Noah. Are you awake? She sat up. I am now. Come on in. The boy peeked in, still in his nightshirt. Papa is making breakfast. He said it will be ready in 10 minutes and not to expect much. Clara smiled. Tell your papa I will be right down. A little boy's letter brought Clara clear across the country to a Texas ranch drowning in sorrow. It's a place where a father's grief has left no room for his son. But just showing up is sometimes the only thing a person can do. Noah stood in her doorway, his voice barely a whisper. You ain't leaving, are you, Miss Whitman? Clara promised she would stay for all 31 days of July. Even if Papa's grumpy? He asked. She knelt to look him in the eye. Your Papa is hurting, Noah. Nothing can fix that overnight. But sometimes folks just need a little help with the day-to-day, to know they ain't alone. That's why you sent for me. It's about surviving, she told him gently. Are you lonely, Miss Whitman? The boy asked. Very, she confessed, but I'm hoping that'll change. That's when Noah threw his arms around her neck, a fierce hug that warmed her to the bone. I'll help you, he declared, his eyes shining. Downstairs, the kitchen was grim, but the smell of bacon filled the air. Ethan stood at the stove, his back to them. Sit, he ordered without turning around. Food's near ready. Clara took a seat at the table, seeing 3 mismatched plates already set out. Ethan served the burnt bacon and tough eggs without a word. They ate in a heavy silence that Noah did not dare break. Finally, Ethan spoke. I'm gone from sunup to sundown. You and the boy will be on your own. He explained the endless ranch work, from sick cattle to broken fences. There's food in the cellar, he finished. I ain't a particular man. Clara glanced down at the scorched bacon. I noticed, she said quietly. For a split second, she saw the corner of his mouth twitch, a ghost of a smile that vanished as fast as it came. Town is 3 miles east, he continued, but it's best you lay low for a while. He did not want any more gossip. And Clara understood. After giving her a way to signal for emergencies, he grabbed his hat and was gone. The house seemed to breathe easier with him out of it. He's not always so mean, the boy offered. Clara just smiled. Let's get to work. Show me where your mama kept the cleaning supplies. Noah's face brightened. Together they found old rags and soap and began their attack on the years of dust and grime. As they worked, Noah chattered on. Mama used to sing when she cleaned, he said, while Clara scrubbed the floor. He hummed a few off-key notes of a sad old song. My own mother sang that tune, Clara said softly. By noon, the kitchen was transformed. The windows shone and the floors were clean. Clara's hands were raw, but she felt a deep satisfaction. She could fix this at least. Noah looked around with wide eyes. It looks like it did when Mama was here. Clara asked if that made him sad. A little sad, he admitted, but mostly glad. Maybe she can see we ain't forgot. The simple honesty of it brought tears to Clara's eyes. After a lunch of bread and cheese, she started his lessons. His father's grief had left no time for schoolwork. He grew frustrated trying to spell. I'm no good at this, he mumbled. Learning ain't about being good or bad, Clara said, guiding his hand. Your brain is a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets, and you're a smart boy. Her praise was like water on dry land, and he beamed. That afternoon, Clara aired out the musty parlor. Tucked in a drawer, she found photographs of Noah's mother, a woman with kind eyes and a vibrant smile. She imagined her singing in this house, bringing it life. Clara wrapped the pictures back up, feeling it was Ethan's place to display them. By sunset, she was exhausted, but the house felt cared for again. It felt alive. For dinner, she found potatoes, onions, and salt pork. It was not much, but like her own mother, Clara knew how to turn simple food into a comforting meal. Ethan came back that evening to a home transformed. The floors were clean, and the air smelled of good cooking. You have been busy, he said, surprised. It is what I'm being paid for, she replied. Dinner was quieter than breakfast, but it was a comfortable quiet. Noah chattered about finding 2 new eggs. After they ate, Noah helped Clara with the dishes, carefully stacking them just so. I want to do it right, so you will stay, he admitted. His little voice was full of worry. What if you decide Papa is too mean? Clara knelt down to look him in the eye. I made a promise to you and your father. I do not break my promises. Do you believe me? He studied her face and then gave a slow nod. Yes, ma'am. Good, she said. Now why don't we read a story before bed? His whole face lit up. Really? Mama used to read to me every night. Papa tried to, but it made him too sad. They settled on the sofa with a book of fairy tales. As Clara read, Noah's small finger traced the words. They were lost in a story about a brave girl when the front door opened, and Ethan stepped inside. Ethan froze when he saw them, his hand already on the stair rail. Papa, Noah called out. Miss Whitman is reading to me. Come listen. Ethan's foot hesitated on the bottom step. It is getting late, son. Please, just one more, Noah begged. Clara looked at Ethan. We are almost done with this one. For a long moment his jaw was set hard. She figured he would just send the boy to bed out of pure stubbornness. But then he gave a short nod and eased into the chair across from them, looking stiff and out of place. Clara kept reading, feeling his eyes on her and Noah the whole time. The boy was lost in the tale, leaning right against her. When the story ended, Noah let out a happy sigh. Time for bed, Ethan said, his voice firm. We can read again tomorrow, Clara told the boy, who gave her a quick surprise hug before running up the stairs. Good night, Papa. Good night, Miss Whitman. They both said good night as Noah vanished up the stairs, leaving a heavy silence. Clara stood to leave, but Ethan's voice stopped her. He has not been that happy in a long while, he said, the words coming out rough. He is a good boy. He deserves to be happy. I know he does, Ethan snapped back. Clara met his defensive tone with a calm one. I think you're doing the best you can. But sorrow can make a person forget simple things, like bedtime stories. His eyes flashed with anger. You've been here one day. Do not act like you know what I have forgotten. You are right. I am sorry, she said, holding his gaze. But I know what it is like for Noah. I lost both my parents inside of 6 months. I know how it feels to watch your only parent fade away into their own grief. The anger left his face, replaced by shock. When I was 19, my father passed from a bad heart. My mother followed soon after. The doctor called it pneumonia, but I know it was a broken heart. Her own voice was steady, even with the old hurt. I understand loss. Mr. Cole, maybe not your way, but I understand it. He was quiet for a long time. I did not know, he finally said. How could you? She replied. And this time, he let her go. In the weeks that followed, Clara brought order to the chaos. Ethan remained distant, leaving before sunup and coming home after dark. But Noah thrived. He soaked up her attention during their lessons, and together they brought the house and garden back to life. For the first time in years, Clara felt needed. She was not just a teacher anymore. She was helping to heal a home. One Sunday, she walked to town, her first time alone since she arrived, and walked straight into the town's ugly side. It felt like a lifetime ago that she left the city, but it had only been a month. A trial run caring for a grieving boy and walking on eggshells around his father, a man who wore his pain like a shield. She'd come all this way for a promise of family, but what she found was just hard. One afternoon, after a long walk, she found young Noah waiting on the porch steps, his little face lighting up the second he saw her. He let out a breath he'd been holding. I was worried you'd left for good. I told you I'd be back before dinner, she said gently, sitting beside him. I know, he mumbled, but people keep leaving. Clara's heart ached for him. Well, I am not going anywhere. Not yet, anyway. He looked up at her, his eyes full of a question that was too big for a boy his age. But you will, when the month is up. It was the plain truth, and she couldn't bring herself to lie. Maybe, she said softly. Or maybe, your father and I will decide I should stay on for a while longer. What if I asked you to stay forever? He whispered. The question hit her right in the chest. Oh, honey, it is not that simple. Why not? He pressed. Because your father has to want that too. And right now, he's just trying to get through one day to the next. Noah stared at the porch floor. Do you think he will ever be happy again? I do, she said. I think happiness comes back real slow in little pieces, like watching you read a whole page by yourself or hearing you laugh out loud. They sat in the quiet as the sun bled gold and purple across the mountains. That fragile peace, however, was shattered just 3 days later. Clara was wrestling with weeds in the garden when a fancy carriage, the likes of which she had not seen since leaving the city, rolled into the yard. Noah ran back from the road, his eyes wide as saucers. Miss Whitman, there is a lady coming, a real fancy lady. The woman who stepped out of that carriage wore a dress that cost more than Clara earned in 6 months. She was polished and perfect. Everything Clara was not in her dirt-smudged work dress. You must be the housekeeper, the woman said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I am Margaret Thornberry. My family owns the next ranch over. Pleased to meet you, Clara said, wiping her hands on her apron. Margaret's eyes raked over her with clear disgust. I heard a story in town about a mail-order bride who showed up uninvited. I just had to see for myself. The words were meant to sting. I am here as a teacher for Noah, Clara replied, keeping her voice even. Of course, Margaret purred, though her smile was cold as ice. How charitable of you. And of Ethan, taking in a woman with no reputation to speak of. My reputation is my own business. Perhaps, but Ethan's is mine. Margaret stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. We have an understanding, he and I. An arrangement between two proper families. Clara felt her stomach turn over. You should know where things stand, Margaret continued. Ethan will need a wife who understands his world, not some desperate woman who answered a child's lonely letters. The cruelty of it took Clara's breath away. She fought to stay calm. If you and Mr. Cole have an understanding, you should take that up with him. Oh, I will. We are having a private dinner tomorrow night. You will need to take the boy and make yourself scarce. Margaret smiled. knowing she had won. Do enjoy your month here, Miss Whitman, but do not get too comfortable. As the carriage disappeared down the road, Noah slipped his small hand into hers. I do not like her, he said. She is mean. She is just protecting what she thinks is hers, Clara murmured, her mind reeling. But Papa is not hers, Noah insisted fiercely. He is ours. That evening, Clara told Ethan about his visitor. His jaw tightened. Margaret came here? She also informed me that you two have dinner plans tomorrow. I have no plans with her, he said, his voice flat. She seemed certain. Well, she is wrong. Ethan's eyes met hers. Her father wants to combine our properties. He wants us to marry. I have never once encouraged the idea. She does not seem to have gotten that message. Then I will make myself clearer, he said, pushing back from the table. If she shows up tomorrow, you tell her I am busy. Tell her I am busy for the rest of her life. He paused, his gaze softening just a bit. I did not ask for her meddling any more than I asked for yours. The difference is you are actually useful. It was the closest thing to a compliment she had ever received from him. But the trouble did not end with Margaret. The whispers started, following Clara like a shadow whenever she went near town. Neighbors would stop by the fence line, asking Noah pointed questions about the new housekeeper. Mrs. Patterson said people are talking, Noah told her one morning, his voice small. She said it is not right, you being here. What did you tell her? Clara asked, her hands working the bread dough on the table. I told her you are my teacher, and it is none of her business, he said, looking up for approval. Was that wrong? No, honey, she smiled. That was exactly right. But the talk grew meaner. The stares in town became colder. Women pulled their children away as she passed. It all came to a head one Saturday morning at the general store. The owner, Mr. Hendricks, who was usually polite, looked straight through her. I will need these items, Clara said, placing her list on the counter. He stared at it. This going on the coal account? Yes. And you are authorized to make purchases? He asked, his voice full of suspicion. Mr. Cole sent me himself. Mr. Hendricks leaned in. Look, I have had complaints from customers who would rather not shop alongside certain people. The insult was plain as day. I am just buying flour and sugar, Mr. Hendricks. I fail to see how that is anyone's concern. It is not what you are buying, he said, his voice low and nasty. It is what you represent, an unmarried woman living in sin with Ethan Cole. I am not living in sin. Clara's voice rang through the quiet store, making heads turn. I am employed as a housekeeper and a teacher. There is nothing improper about my situation. Maybe so, maybe not, Hendricks shrugged. But in a small town, what people think matters. And they think Ethan Cole is playing house with some desperate woman who threw herself at him. The words hit Clara like a punch to the gut. She gripped the counter, trying to breathe past the shame. From behind her, she heard a small, furious voice. My papa is a good man, Noah shouted, stepping forward. And Miss Whitman is good too. You take that back. It is just mean, Noah cried, tears streaming down his cheeks. They do not know how sad we were. They do not see that you make Papa smile sometimes. The store fell dead silent with every person staring. Clara stood tall, took Noah's hand, and walked to the door. Keep your supplies, she said without looking back. And you can tell your customers that mean-spirited gossip always finds its way back home. The ride back was quiet, except for Noah's sniffles. Ethan was in the yard and knew something was wrong the second he saw them. What happened? Noah just ran for the house, crying again. Ethan's gaze fell hard on Clara. Tell me what happened. So she told him everything, keeping her voice steady because she knew she would fall apart otherwise. With every word, Ethan's face got darker, his hands slowly tightening into fists. "I will handle this," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "It is one thing to gossip. It is another to shame you in public." He headed for the barn. "I am going to town." "Mr. Cole, please do not," she started. "I should have done this from the start," he said, saddling his horse with a rough energy she had not seen before, "instead of hiding out here." He climbed into the saddle, and for the first time she saw fire in his eyes. "I'm going to remind folks that the people on my land are under my protection." He rode off fast, kicking up a cloud of dust. Clara stood there, her heart pounding, torn between fear and gratitude. When Noah came out, she pulled him close. "This is not your fault, you hear me? None of it." "But if I had not sent for you," he whispered. "Then I would still be in a lonely room in Philadelphia," she said, making him look at her. "You gave me something real, Noah. I would not trade it." The wait for Ethan's return felt like forever. When he finally rode in at sunset, his face gave nothing away. He walked into the house, and Clara had to ask, "Well?" "It is handled," he said after a long drink of water. "What did you do?" "I had a talk with Hendricks. I told him your credit is the same as mine from now on. He will not turn you away again." "And the gossip?" He set his cup down slowly. "I suggested that if folks kept spreading lies, I might just take my business and my neighbor's business somewhere else." "You threatened him." "I just stated the facts of the matter," he said, his jaw firm. "Hendricks needs our business more than we need his." Clara felt a wave of relief. "You did not have to do all that." "Yes, I did." Ethan finally looked her straight in the eye. "You came here and brought my son back to me. I will not let this town's busybodies run you off." His words changed the feel of the whole room. Something had shifted between them for good. "Thank you," was all she could say. "I should have done it weeks ago." He turned to go upstairs, but stopped. "You were right that day at the station, Miss Whitman. I have been a coward, hiding from my grief and my duties. But I am done hiding now." And with that, he walked upstairs, leaving her with the hope of a new beginning. Sleep just was not coming for Clara. She lay there in the dark, her mind racing. Ethan standing up for them had bought a little time, but it did not solve the real problem. She was a single woman living in his house, and with only 2 weeks left on their agreement, she had no idea what came next. The town's gossip had quieted to whispers, but she could still feel their eyes on her. Ethan was less cold, even sitting with them one evening while she read to Noah. It was not much, but it felt like a start. Then one Thursday, Noah came running into the house, all out of breath. He said there was a man outside with important papers for his papa. Clara followed the boy outside and saw a man in a stiff city suit sitting on a fine black horse. Ethan came out from the barn. The man introduced himself as Lawrence Finch, an inspector from the land office. He announced he was there to assess Ethan's homestead claim. Ethan stood perfectly still, his face giving nothing away. Mr. Finch explained that new rules required a review of a man's moral fitness, and complaints had been filed about their household. Clara felt a chill run right through her. The man said the complaints were about an unmarried woman living there. He even quoted a statute saying the land could be taken if the owner was found unfit. "That is just plain crazy," Clara said. "I am his housekeeper." Mr. Finch hardly gave her a look. He said that in a place like this, what people think matters a great deal. Ethan stepped up, his voice low and dangerous, asking who made the complaints. The inspector just said they were anonymous and that he would be talking to folks in town. He told Ethan he had 30 days to fix the problem, or the government would start proceedings to take his land. The man offered 2 simple solutions: get married or get rid of the woman. Then he tipped his hat and rode away, leaving them in a cloud of dust and disbelief. Ethan spoke first, his voice hard as rock. "It is Margaret," he said. "Her and her father are behind this." "It doesn't matter who complained," Clara said, her voice hollow. "What matters is I'm ruining you." Ethan's reply was sharp. "Don't you dare. This isn't on you." He paced, agitated. "You heard the man. Marry me or get off my land. That is their idea of morals. Clara hugged herself tight. Then I will go, right now. That will fix it. But a small voice cut in. You promised, Noah cried, his little fists clenched. You promised a whole month. Tears streamed down his face. Mama left. Now you are leaving. Papa will be next, and I will be all alone. He pulled away from his father's touch and ran for the house, slamming the door so hard the old frame shook. The dust settled in the quiet yard. A lone hawk cried out overhead. There is another way, Clara said, her voice tight. Marriage. Ethan looked at her, stunned. Not a real one, she clarified, staring at the horizon. A partnership. It would satisfy their rules, protect this ranch, and give Noah what he needs. He shook his head. You cannot be serious. She finally met his gaze. I am. Think about it. You need help with the house and Noah. I need a job. This would make it all official and shut down the gossip for good. Ethan's voice was rough. Marriage is a sacred vow. And sometimes, Clara cut in, it is about surviving. My grandmother married a man to feed her children after her first husband died. They built a good life, and eventually they found love. Eventually, Ethan repeated, the words sounding empty. We are not talking about love, Mr. Cole, Clara stated firmly. We are talking about a solution. You keep your land, Noah gets to feel safe, and I get a job. We are both already trapped. At least this way has some dignity. Ethan stared at her. You would tie yourself to a stranger on paper just to fix my mess? It became my mess too when I got off that train, she said, lifting her chin. And yes, this is better than the life I left. The honest confession hung in the air. I need to think, he finally said. Finch will be back in a few days, she warned. I know, Ethan replied, his voice strained. But if we do this, it cannot be because we were forced. He walked toward the barn, his shoulders heavy. Clara watched him go, her heart pounding. She had just proposed to a grieving man who barely knew her. It was a desperate move. She found Noah curled up on his bed. I am sorry, she said gently. You are leaving. Just like everyone else, he mumbled into his pillow. I am trying to find a way to stay, she explained. That is what your papa and I were talking about. He turned over, his eyes full of hope and fear. Really? Really. But there are some silly rules we have to follow. So I have an idea. What would you think if your papa and I got married? Noah sat straight up. Married? Like Mama and Papa? Sort of, Clara said carefully. It would be more like a partnership, so I could stay here and take care of things without breaking any rules. Would you be my new mama? The question was a sharp pain in her chest. No one could ever replace your mama, Noah. But I could be someone who loves you and is always here for you. He thought hard. Would you still read to me and make the house smell nice and laugh at my jokes? Tears welled in her eyes. Yes, all of those things. He threw his arms around her. Then I want you to stay forever. He pulled back, full of a child's certainty. Papa will say yes. He has to. You make everything better. But Ethan did not come for supper that night. The empty chair at the table felt like a judgment. Clara waited in the parlor long after Noah was asleep, the ticking clock loud in the silence. Ethan finally came in near midnight, looking worn to the bone. Have you decided? She asked softly. He paused. I have been thinking about Sarah. It was the first time he had said his late wife's name. She was a practical woman, he said, a faint smile on his lips. Folks thought we married for love, but it started as a deal. I was a rancher with nothing, and her school was closing. She helped me build this place, and I gave her a home. The love came later, after years of hard work together. He looked down at his hands. It was a good life, until the fever took her. I swore I would never marry again. But tonight, he continued, looking up to meet her eyes, thinking about losing this ranch, failing my boy, and watching you leave, I realized I am more afraid of all that than I am of marrying again. Clara held her breath. So I am saying yes. The words hung between them. But you need to know what you are getting. I cannot offer you love. My heart is still buried with her. I am not asking for love, Clara replied, though it stung. Just partnership and respect. That I can give, he said. But we need rules, separate rooms. In public, we are a family. In private, we are just business partners. It was what she had offered, but hearing it aloud felt cold and final. Still, she nodded. That is fair. If one of us gets unhappy, we talk about it straight. No sulkin', no playing the martyr. Ethan's voice got real soft when he mentioned his boy. Noah can't think we're turning into a real family, with a mom and dad in love. He's got to know this is a deal between us. Clara answered gently. He is 7, Ethan. He's gonna hope no matter what we say, but we can be honest with him about our partnership. Ethan gave a slow nod. Well, I reckon we are engaged then. The word felt strange, almost silly. When she saw the look on Ethan's face, a mix of terror and surrender, Clara couldn't bring herself to laugh. He looked like a man choosing to step off a cliff just to avoid drowning. When? She asked. He said, It has to be soon before that fella Finch finishes his report. Tomorrow, if we can. The circuit judge comes through Drywell Crossing on Fridays. We can make it legal before anyone gets in our way. Tomorrow. The word spun in Clara's head. In 24 hours, she'd be married to a man who still loved his dead wife, a man doing this only to save his land. All right, she heard herself say. Tomorrow. Ethan stood and walked heavy-footed toward the stairs. At the top, he stopped. Miss Whitman, Clara. It was the first time he'd said her name, and it sounded rough and strangely close. Thank you for this. You are saving more than just the ranch. You know that, right? I hope so, she whispered back. He went up the stairs, leaving her in the quiet lamplight. She would be Clara Cole, wife to a widower and stepmother to a sad little boy. It was a life built from necessity, not from dreams. But a woman's dreams don't often stand up to the hard facts of life. This was her choice, and she would make it be enough. The next day started clear and cold. Clara got up before the sun and put on her best dress, a simple blue cotton she brought from back east. It was no wedding dress, but it had to do. She pinned up her hair and looked at herself in the little mirror. She looked just the same, which felt wrong. Shouldn't a bride look different? Noah tapped on her door. You look pretty, Miss Whitman. Thank you, sweetheart. Clara knelt down and took his small hands. He fidgeted. Is it bad that I am excited? Mama's only been gone a year. Your mama would want you to be happy, Clara said softly. This is not about forgetting her. It is about moving forward. He asked, Will you tell me about her sometimes? She smiled. If your papa will share the stories, I would love to hear them too. They found Ethan in the kitchen, already dressed in his old wedding suit. It was tight across his shoulders from years of hard work, making him look vulnerable and out of place. The wagon is ready, he said, his voice flat. Judge Morton will see us at the courthouse at 9. The ride into town was mostly silent, with the vast land rolling by. Clara tried not to think about what they were about to do, a bond that was meant to be permanent. But she pushed the worry down. No sense in borrowing trouble. The Drywell Crossing Courthouse was a plain stone building. Judge Morton, a stout man with kind eyes, was waiting on the steps with a couple of folks from church to be witnesses. The judge got right to it. Mr. Cole, Miss Whitman. I understand you are here to be married. Yes, sir, Ethan said. And you are both doing this of your own free will? They looked at each other. Was survival a free will? Yes, they both said. The judge opened his book. The ceremony was quick, all about partnership and respect. Clara was thankful he did not mention love. That was a promise she couldn't make. For the rings, Ethan brought out a simple gold band. Clara felt a rush of relief when she saw it was not his first wife's ring. It was brand new. His hands shook a little as he slid it onto her finger. The ring was too big, but it was real. By the power vested in me, the judge said, his voice filling the room, I now pronounce you husband and wife. He closed his book with a solid thud. Mrs. Cole. The name felt like a heavy coat on Clara's shoulders. Ethan did not kiss her, and the awkward silence made the witnesses shuffle their feet. But Clara was glad. A kiss would have been a lie, and they had promised each other the truth. Just as they finished signing the papers, the door burst open. Lawrence Finch stormed in, his face red with anger. "Judge, I protest. On what grounds, Mr. Finch?" the judge asked calmly. "This marriage is a fake, just to get around the rules. Is that a fact? Do you have any proof they are not legally married?" "The timing is mighty suspicious," Finch sputtered. Ethan's voice was cold as ice. "What is obvious is that you are trying to run my wife off her own land." "Well, she is not going anywhere. She is Mrs. Cole now, legal and proper. Your assessment means nothing." Finch's face turned purple, but Judge Morton cut him off. "Mr. Finch, unless you are saying I performed an illegal ceremony, I suggest you leave." The inspector stammered and then stormed out. In the quiet that followed, Noah let out a nervous giggle. "He was really mad," the boy said. Judge Morton just smiled. "He will get over it. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Cole." Back out in the bright sun, Clara looked at the ring on her finger. "We have to tell people," Ethan said suddenly. "Get out ahead of the gossip." "How?" she asked. "The church social is tomorrow. Everyone in town will be there. We will show up together as man and wife. We will dare anyone to say a word." It was a bold move, but Clara knew he was right. They had to control the story. "All right," she agreed. "Tomorrow we face the wolves." The ride home was heavy with the weight of what they had done. Clara twisted the loose ring on her finger. She was married to a grieving widower who, just weeks ago, wanted nothing to do with her. The whole situation was so strange it was almost funny. Noah's chatter filled the silence. "I bet Mrs. Patterson will nearly faint when we tell everyone. Remember when the Hendersons' cow had twin calves? She fainted right in the church aisle." "That is enough, son," Ethan said, but without his usual sharp tone. When they got back to the ranch, Ethan helped Clara down from the wagon. His hand was steady and proper on her elbow, but the simple touch sent a jolt up her arm. They were married now, bound together by law and a piece of land. "I need to check the north fence," Ethan said, already pulling away. Ethan was already heading to the barn. "Said there'd been coyotes. It's past noon," Claire mentioned, but he just shrugged it off, saying he'd manage. He told her to rest up for the hard day coming, then vanished into the shadows. And just like that, on her own wedding day, Clara felt the cold weight of their arrangement. She'd agreed to this distance, but the reality of it cut deep. Noah slipped a small hand into hers. "He's just scared," the boy whispered. She squeezed his hand and smiled. "I know, honey. But I made promises today, and I aim to keep 'em. Now, let's get to cooking. Your papa's got to eat, whether he knows it or not." They spent the afternoon making a fine meal of roasted chicken and fresh garden potatoes. When Ethan came back at sunset, covered in dust and exhaustion, he froze in the doorway. He saw the table set with the good dishes and a proper meal laid out. "What's all this?" he asked, his voice rough. "Dinner," Clara said plainly. "It's time we ate together, as a family." The word family just hung there in the quiet kitchen. They ate without many words, with only Noah filling the silence. Afterward, Ethan stood up. "I'll take the barn tonight, give you some space." Clara was confused. "That's not necessary. We have separate rooms." "I know," he said, his jaw tight. "But folks talk. Better this way, less complicated." Noah piped up, "Papa, you can't sleep out there." But Ethan just grabbed his hat. "I've slept in worse." He was gone before they could say another word. Clara pulled a trembling Noah close. "He just needs a little time, sweetheart," she said, though the words felt empty. Once the boy was asleep, the loneliness of her wedding night hit her hard. Married today and sleeping alone in a dead woman's room while her husband hid in the barn. She let a few tears fall, then straightened her back. She'd known this was a practical arrangement, not a fairy tale. If she'd hoped for more, that was her own foolish heart to manage. The next morning, Ethan was already in the kitchen, looking like he hadn't slept a wink. His eyes were dark with exhaustion. "You still fixin' to go to that church social?" she asked. "We have to," he stated. "We need folks to see us together, to believe this is real." At 2 o'clock, they pulled up to the church lawn, making a late and calculated entrance. Every head turned. Whispers followed them like a breeze through dry grass. Ethan helped Clara down from the wagon, his hand firm on her waist. To the whole town, it looked like a husband's care. Only Clara felt the slight tremor in his fingers before he let go. "Ready?" he murmured. She took a breath. "As I'll ever be." They walked right into the thick of it, a perfect picture of a family. The chatter died down to nothing. Every single eye was on them. Margaret Thornberry's face went from white to red in a heartbeat. Reverend Walsh walked over, looking puzzled. "Ethan, Miss Whitman, we didn't expect to see y'all." Ethan's voice was clear and loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's Mrs. Cole now, Reverend. We were married yesterday morning." The news hit the crowd like a bolt of lightning. Margaret let out a sound that was half gasp, half sob. Her father, Samuel Thornberry, looked like he was about to blow a gasket. "Married?" cried Mrs. Patterson, her voice shrill with disbelief. "But you hardly know each other." "We know each other well enough," Clara said, lifting her chin. "We decided to make our partnership official." Margaret sneered. "Partnership? You mean you schemed your way into his home to trap him?" "That's enough." Ethan's voice cut through the air like a whip. "You will not speak to my wife that way." Before another cruel word could be spoken, young Noah stepped right up. "You're being mean, Miss Thornberry," his little voice rang out. "Clara is good and kind. She makes Papa smile, and she's making our house a home again. We deserve to be happy." The crowd went dead silent. Margaret just stared at the boy, completely humiliated. "My son's right," Ethan said into the quiet. "Grief was tearing us apart, and Clara brought some light back into our lives. I married her because I respect her, and I won't let town gossip run her off." Samuel Thornberry stepped forward, his voice dripping with scorn. "How convenient. Marrying her the day after the land inspector pays a visit." "I call it good sense," Ethan shot back. "Folks were trying to back me into a corner. I just chose a different way out. I chose my family." "Sarah was your family?" Margaret cried out. "You've replaced her." "Sarah's gone." Ethan's voice was filled with a year's worth of pain. "She's been gone 12 months. I will always love her, but she is not here. We are." At the town social, Margaret cornered Ethan, her face streaked with tears. "You were promised to me," she cried out. "Our fathers had an arrangement." Ethan answered her softly but firmly, saying he had never agreed to any such thing. The Reverend tried to calm everyone down, reminding them it was a celebration of Ethan and Clara's new marriage. But the crowd just stood there, frozen. Clara felt the weight of all their judgment. These people saw her as a thief who had stolen what was not hers. She whispered to Ethan that they should go. "No," he said, his voice solid as an oak tree. "We came here to be seen. We are not running." He took her hand in his. Ethan laced his fingers through hers right there in front of everybody. "My wife and I are going to get something to eat," he announced. "Anyone who does not like it is free to leave." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the widow Henderson, who ran the boarding house, stepped forward with a warm smile. "Congratulations to you both," she said. Her kindness broke the spell. A few other folks came up to offer their own good wishes. Margaret and her father, however, stormed away in a huff, and a few other families followed them. But enough people stayed. Clara and Ethan made it through the rest of the afternoon, a united front, before finally heading home under the watchful eyes of the entire town. The ride back to the ranch was dead quiet. Worn out from the whole mess, little Noah had fallen asleep against Clara. She just stared out at the plains, trying to push away the memory of Margaret's angry tears and the way folks in town looked at her. "You handled yourself well," Ethan said in a low voice. "Felt like I was the one on trial." "We both were," she replied. Later, after tucking Noah in, they stood awkwardly in the hall. "I'll sleep in the old sewing room," Ethan finally said. "Best we keep up appearances." Clara twisted her ring. "Ethan, about what Margaret said." "She's just hurt," he cut in. "But she was right. We barely know each other. What if this is a mistake?" Ethan took a long pause. "When my Sarah was dying, she made me promise something. She told me, don't let the grief swallow you and Noah. Find a way to keep on living." He looked right at Clara, his eyes showing a pain he rarely let surface. "I thought living just meant working till I was too tired to feel. But then you came, and I saw that living means making hard choices to move forward. This marriage ain't a romance, I know, but it's a choice we made with our eyes wide open. That's got to count for something." "I hope you're right," Clara whispered. The next few weeks settled into a routine. They were polite but distant, with Noah filling the silence between them. Some townsfolk started coming around, but the Thornburg family and their friends still gave them the cold shoulder. Then one afternoon, 2 weeks after the wedding, Lawrence Finch came riding up with a couple of other men. Clara's stomach sank. She found Ethan in the barn. "Finch is here," she said, "and he's not alone." Ethan's face hardened. "Get behind me." Finch dismounted, a smug look on his face as he unrolled a paper. "Mr. and Mrs. Cole," he said, dripping with false manners. "I've got the results of the moral assessment." "I thought the wedding settled that," Ethan said flatly. "It would have, if it were a real marriage." Finch's smile was all teeth. "We've got witnesses who say you sleep in separate rooms. Says here this is all just for show." Clara felt the blood drain from her face. Someone had been spying on them. "Our sleeping arrangements are our own business," she said, her voice trembling with rage. "Not when they prove fraud," Finch shot back. "A marriage just to get around the law can be annulled. You have 30 days to get off this property." "You can't do this," Ethan said, his voice low and dangerous. "We are legally married." "You had a ceremony, sure," Finch sneered. "But unless you can prove this is a real union with all that implies, the land is forfeit." The meaning was ugly and clear. Prove you are truly husband and wife, or lose everything. "This is blackmail," Clara said. "You've got 30 days, Finch repeated, and rode off. They stood there in stunned silence. "Who told them?" Clara asked. "Does it matter?" Ethan sounded hollow. "They're right. We're partners with a piece of paper." "So what do we do?" He turned to her, desperation in his eyes. "We make it real. We stop with the separate rooms. We give them the proof they're demanding." Clara's heart pounded in her chest. "You mean share a bed?" "I mean we act like a husband and wife," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I know this ain't what we agreed on, Clara. But I can't lose this ranch. It's all I have to give to Noah. You're asking me to give up the only protection I have here. I'm asking you to help me save everything," he pleaded. She looked at him, her mind spinning. It was a marriage of convenience, not one of intimacy. But the other choice was to lose it all. "All right," she heard herself say. "We'll make it real." The words hung in the air, heavy with a future neither of them was ready for. Ethan let out a breath that was part relief, part fear. "We have to be convincing. Whoever is watching can't see a thing out of place." "So I move my things into your room tonight," Clara said, trying to sound braver than she felt. "We make sure it looks like we're a real married couple." "I know it's a lot to ask," Ethan said. "We've both asked a lot of each other," she replied. "What's one more impossible thing?" They spent the afternoon making the change. The master bedroom still felt like his first wife's space, with her brush on the vanity and the scent of lavender in the air. Clara felt like she was trespassing on sacred ground. "I should have put these things away a year ago," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion as he walked in with her suitcase. "Every time I tried, It felt like I was erasing her. You don't have to erase her, Clara said softly. But maybe it's time to make a little room for right now. Together, they carefully packed Sarah's belongings into a trunk. His hands shook as he closed the lid. She was a good woman, he said quietly. I know she was, Clara replied, placing a hand on his shoulder. And I'm sure she'd want you to keep on living. Ethan laid his hand over hers, a quick but honest touch. I appreciate you understanding, not holding her memory against us. Clara just squeezed his shoulder. How could I hold a grudge against a woman I never met, who loved you and Noah so much? They worked quietly, moving furniture and making the room theirs. A little while later, Noah saw Clara's things in the master bedroom and his eyes lit up. Are you and Papa staying in the same room now? He asked, his voice filled with hope. We are, Clara told him. That is what married folks usually do. Does that mean you are really, truly married? The question was sharper than you would expect from a 7-year-old. Ethan knelt down to his level. We were always really married, son, he said gently. But we are still getting to know each other, figuring out how to be a family. It just takes time. Noah nodded. Like how you said you and Mama started out as friends. Exactly like that, Ethan's voice cracked with emotion. That night, sharing a bed for the first time was a strange new reality. The big room felt tiny. Clara came out of the washroom to find Ethan already in bed, turned away from her on the very edge. I will not touch you, he said, his back still to her. I know this is awkward enough. Clara slipped under the covers on her side, keeping her distance. Thank you, she whispered. They laid there stiff as boards in the quiet dark. Clara, he finally said, his voice low. I am sorry for how this all started. I am sorry for putting you in this position. We are both asking for the impossible, Clara whispered back. So I reckon that makes us even. He shifted in the bed. When I turned you away at the train station, I thought I was protecting Noah, protecting Sarah's memory. But I was just plain scared. Scared of what, she asked. Scared of living again. Scared of letting someone new into my heart. You scared me, Clara. You still do. Because you make me feel things I thought were gone forever. Not love, not yet, but hope. The idea that life could be more than just getting by. And that is a terrifying thing when you have told yourself that just getting by is all you deserve. I get it, she said softly. After my folks passed, I figured being alone was safer. But being safe and lonely is its own kind of prison. So we are just two folks who are half given up trying to figure out how to live again, Ethan said, a small smile in his voice. I suppose we are. Maybe we can learn how to do it together, she whispered. The next few weeks they put on a good show for the town. They worked in the garden side by side and sat on the porch together in the evenings. Their hands would brush when they passed the gravy at dinner. Some of it was for show, but after a while some of it started to feel real. Noah was happier than he had been in a long time. The whole house just felt lighter. But that nosy Lawrence Finch was always snooping around, just waiting for them to make a mistake. About 3 weeks later, they went to town for supplies. They walked into the general store holding hands, ready for the whispers. Mrs. Patterson, a woman from the church, gave them a sour look. Well, Mrs. Cole, how sweet. Shopping with your husband. We like to do things together, Clara said with a polite smile. A strong marriage is a partnership. Some might say a true partnership takes longer than a few weeks to build, the woman sniffed. Ethan's hand tightened on hers. And some might say a true partnership is built by facing hard times together, not by how long you courted. My wife and I have been through more in 2 months than most folks see in a lifetime. It has made us stronger. His words were so bold and sure that Clara felt a warmth spread through her. As they loaded their wagon, Samuel Thornberry stomped over, his daughter Margaret right behind him. Cole, this ridiculous act has gone on long enough. Everyone in town knows this marriage is a fake. It is none of your business, Thornberry. It is my business when it affects my family. Samuel's voice got louder. That land should have been mine after you married Margaret. We had an understanding. You had hopes, Ethan shot back. I never made any promises. Margaret stepped up. Ethan, please. This woman is a nobody. A desperate woman who answered a letter from a child. She has nothing to offer. She is my wife. Ethan's voice cut through the air, clear as a bell. And she has shown more grace and more kindness than anyone else in this town. The crowd gasped. You will be sorry for this, Cole, Thornberry snarled. When your fake marriage is exposed, you will lose everything. I will not need mercy, Ethan said calmly. I have something better. I have a family. He helped Clara onto the wagon and they drove away without a single look back. That might have made things a whole lot worse, she said quietly, her heart still racing. Maybe, he said, glancing at her. But I am done letting bullies run my life. You are my wife. That means I stand with you. I should have done it from the start. I meant every word I said back there. He took her hand in his. You are important to me, Clara. Clara, this has become more important than I ever reckoned. We started this as a practical deal, but it has turned into something real. Tears welled up in Clara's eyes. For me, too. I know we agreed it would just be a partnership, but I cannot help hoping it could be more. The words hung in the air, leaving her feeling completely exposed. Ethan stopped the wagon on a quiet piece of road and turned to her. When my Sarah passed, I thought my heart was buried with her. But you showed me there is room for something new. It is not the same, and it should not be. But it is growing, and it matters a great deal. What are you trying to say, Ethan? She whispered. He gently cupped her face. I am saying I am falling in love with you, Clara Cole. Slowly. And not perfectly, but for real. Her tears finally fell. I have been falling for you for weeks, she admitted, but I was too scared to say it. He leaned in and gave her the real first kiss they had skipped at their wedding, a kiss that tasted like a new beginning. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. We are going to get through all of this, he promised. Finch, the Thornberrys, all of it. We will fight them together. The fight, however, came to them the very next day. Lawrence Finch rode up with the deputy, waving legal papers. Mr. and Mrs. Cole, this here is your final notice. The land office has decided your marriage is not legitimate. You have 7 days to leave before we remove you by force. Clara felt her world crumble. 7 days. After everything they had built, the love they had just found, it was not enough. You cannot do this, she said, her voice trembling. We are legally married. We share a home and a family. What more proof do you need? Finch's smile was cold as ice. I need proof this marriage was not just a trick to keep the land. You got married one day after I gave you the first warning. That timing tells the whole story. Timing does not prove a thing, Ethan shot back. We were building a life here for weeks before that. According to who? Your boy, who cooked up this whole scheme? Or your neighbors who said you slept in separate rooms? Finch shook his head. This is fraud, plain and simple. Then we will appeal, Clara declared. We will take it to a higher court. Try if you want, Finch sneered. But this land is forfeit. 7 days, Cole. You had better start packing. As he rode off, Ethan stared at the papers, his face pale as a ghost. Clara wrapped her arms around herself, trying not to fall apart. We cannot just give up, she said. There has to be a way. Ethan's voice was empty. We played all our cards, Clara. We made it real, but it was not enough. They beat us. No, she said, grabbing his arm. We have been defending ourselves. It is time we go on the attack. What are you talking about? Clara's mind was racing. Finch keeps talking about anonymous complaints. But they are not anonymous, are they? It has been the Thornberrys from the very start. They want your land, and Margaret wants payback. They are using Finch like a weapon against us. Even if that is true, we cannot prove it. Maybe we can, Clara insisted. Mrs. Henderson at the boarding house, she hears every secret in this town, and the land office records are public. If we can tie Finch to the Thornberrys with money or some other deal, we can prove this whole thing is a crooked setup. A flicker of hope returned to Ethan's eyes. That is a long shot. It is the only shot we have, she said, taking his hands. We have 7 days. Let us spend them fighting, not surrendering. The despair in Ethan's face hardened into pure determination. All right, then. Let us go to war. They spent the next 3 days digging for the truth, Mrs. Henderson was happy to help, telling them Finch had been seen having quiet dinners with Samuel Thornberry. A clerk at the land office, after a little encouragement for his retirement, found records showing Finch had money tied up in Thornberry's cattle company. They gathered statements from other ranchers the Thornberrys had tried to run off their land. On the 5th day, they laid it all out for Judge Morton. He listened, his face growing darker with every piece of evidence. This is a serious accusation, he said when they finished. If you are right, Finch and the Thornberrys have broken the law, but if you are wrong, this could ruin you. We have proof, Judge, Clara said, spreading the papers on his desk. We have financial records, witnesses, and our marriage certificate signed by you. Judge Morton studied everything for a long moment. All right. I will call an emergency hearing for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I will summon Finch, the Thornberrys, and the supervisor from the Territorial Land Office. You will get your day in court. They went home and told Noah everything. The boy just hugged them both tight. You are going to win, he said, with the kind of faith only a child can have. Because we are a family. That night, lying in bed, Clara whispered, I am terrified. So am I, Ethan answered, kissing her hand. But no matter what happens, you have given me a reason to fight again. I love you, Ethan Cole. I love you too, Clara. And I will spend my life proving it. The courtroom was filled to bursting the next morning. It seemed the entire town had turned out for the final act. Clara, Ethan, and Noah sat together, holding hands. Across the way, the Thornberrys looked like they could spit nails, and Lawrence Finch was sweating through his collar. Judge Morton called the court to order. We are here to review the land office assessment of the Cole homestead and some very serious allegations of corruption. Mr. and Mrs. Cole, you may present your case. For the next hour, they laid out the whole dirty story, connecting the dots between Finch and the Thornberrys with their evidence. Finally, Clara stood up to speak directly to the judge. Your Honor, my husband and I fell in love in a strange way. It was not through a fancy courtship. It was through hard work, respect, and finding the courage to build something new from broken pieces. Our marriage might have started on paper, but it is as real as any in this town. We share a home, a life, and a son. We love each other. That is not fraud. That is a family. The room was dead silent. Even Margaret Thornberry had tears on her cheeks. The judge turned his hard gaze on Finch. Well, Mr. Finch, do you have a response to these allegations? Finch stood up, his hands shaking. Your Honor, I was just following the rules. The complaints seemed legitimate. The judge leaned forward. And who exactly did these complaints come from? Finch's courage evaporated under the judge's hard stare. He finally admitted, Samuel Thornberry told me the Cole homestead needed a closer look because of moral concerns. Judge Morton turned his gaze on Thornberry. And what about your cattle company that Mr. Finch conveniently invested in? That has nothing to do with this, Thornberry blustered. It has everything to do with it, the judge snapped back. It's a conflict of interest, and it means this entire assessment was rotten from the start. Thornberry got to his feet. That land should have been my family's. Cole did my daughter wrong. The judge was not moved. So you abused your connections to try and steal his property? Sir, that isn't protecting your family, that's just plain corruption. He banged the gavel hard. The land office's assessment is declared null and void. The Cole homestead claim is valid. Furthermore, the judge continued, I am recommending Mr. Finch be removed from his post and investigated. And Mr. Thornberry, you can expect to hear from the Territorial Attorney General about this conspiracy. The courtroom erupted. Ethan pulled Clara into a fierce hug as happy tears streamed down her face. Young Noah was laughing and crying all at once. They had won against all odds. Outside, Margaret Thornberry, her father long gone in a storm of fury, approached them. "I am so sorry," she said quietly. "I was hurt, and I let it make me cruel." Clara offered a small, kind smile. "I hope you find real happiness, Margaret." Ethan put his arm around Clara's waist. "Ready to go home, darling?" Clara tested the word. "Home. Yes, let's go home." The seasons that followed brought peace. With the threat gone, their forced partnership blossomed into a true and deep love. The ranch prospered, and Noah thrived, his laughter filling the small house. One crisp autumn evening, 6 months after the trial, Ethan found Clara in the vegetable garden. He was holding a small box. "Your wedding ring is still too big," he said softly, "and I reckon I never asked you proper." He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band, perfectly sized. "Clara Cole, will you marry me? Not because we have to, not to save this ranch, but because I love you with all my heart." Clara laughed through her own tears. "You impossible man, we are already married." "I know," he smiled, his eyes full of love. "But I want to do it right this time." He slipped the new ring onto her finger. It was a perfect fit. "So, what do you say?" "Yes," she whispered, pulling him into a kiss. "Yes, to all of it, forever." They stood there as Noah came running from the house, yelling that supper was ready. The three of them walked back together, hand in hand. They had been strangers thrown together by hardship, but now they were, without a doubt, a family. That little letter that started everything now sat framed in the parlor, a testament not to a lie, but to a hope that built something stronger than they could have ever imagined. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.